The meeting room at the Regal Hotel was silent. Lawyers, investors, everyone's eyes fixed in the same direction. In the center, a black woman in a housekeeper's uniform held an envelope in her trembling hands. Across the table, Richard Dalton, the hotel owner, was red with rage. Mr. Khalid al-Rashid watched everything with an icy expression. The tension was unbearable. To understand how they got here, we need to go back 3 days. It was a regular Monday at the Regal Hotel, the kind of place where every detail screamed luxury. Italian marble floors, crystal chandeliers worth more than an apartment, and guests who treated money like scrap paper. Aaliyah Carter pushed her cleaning cart down the 12th floor hallway. 32 years old, curly hair pulled into a tight bun, immaculate blue uniform. She was invisible, and she knew it. 3 years working there. 3 years cleaning rooms, bathrooms, hallways. 3 years overhearing conversations that weren't meant for her, seeing faces she'd never see again. To the guests, she was part of the decor. To Richard Dalton, she was even less than that. Aaliyah entered the presidential suite carefully. The room was spotless, as always. Wealthy guests rarely made a mess. They had staff for that at home, too. She changed the towels, wiped the surfaces, checked that everything was perfect. That's when she heard voices in the hallway. The door swung open forcefully. Richard Dalton stormed in like a hurricane. A $3,000 suit, gray hair slicked back, that fake salesman smile. Behind him, a man in an immaculate white robe and red and white keffiyeh, Mr. Khalid al-Rashid. Aaliyah recognized him from the commotion that had taken over the hotel since early morning. "This is our presidential suite, Your Excellency," Richard said, spreading his arms as if presenting paradise. 2,000 square feet, panoramic city view, gold-trimmed bathroom fixtures. The Sheikh looked around with a neutral expression. Men like him saw luxury before breakfast. Aaliyah stayed in the corner, trying to disappear. It didn't work. "What are you still doing here?" Richard snapped. "Can't you see I'm with an important guest?" "Sorry, Mr. Dalton. I was just finishing up." "Finishing up?" He laughed, humorless. "You should have finished 15 minutes ago. Do you know how much every minute of this man's time costs? More than you make in a whole year." Aaliyah lowered her head. She knew this game. Talking back made it worse. Richard loved humiliating staff, especially those he called basic services, housekeepers, doormen, valets, people he thought were born to serve. The Sheikh said nothing, just watched. "Look at me when I talk to you," Richard barked. "People like you need to learn your place. Do you know how many people would kill for your job? And you're wasting time getting in the way." "Sorry, sir." Aaliyah gathered her things quickly. "Sorry, sir." Richard mocked her voice. "Is that all you know how to say? God, I keep hiring the most incompetent people." Aaliyah gripped the cart tightly. Her hand shook, not from fear, but from anger held back for 3 years. Anger from swallowing insults, waking up at 5 a.m., taking 2 buses, working 8 hours on her feet, still being told she wasn't good enough. But she needed this job. She had bills, a sick mother. So she did what she always did, lowered her head and left. That's when she heard it, a small metallic sound. Something had fallen to the floor. Aaliyah looked down and saw a ring. Not just any ring, solid gold, with an engraved crest and an emerald the size of a grape. The kind of thing worth more than a house. It had rolled under the dresser. The Sheikh hadn't noticed. Richard was too busy bragging about the suite's amenities. Aaliyah could have just walked away. It wasn't her problem. But that wasn't how she was raised. She crouched, picked up the ring carefully, and walked toward the Sheikh. He was facing the window, listening to Richard's endless sales pitch. Aaliyah took a breath and spoke in Arabic. "Excuse me, sir, this fell from you." Her voice was firm, clear, fluent, with the soft Lebanese accent she'd heard from her father her whole life. The Sheikh turned slowly. Their eyes met. Richard stopped mid-sentence, stunned. Aaliyah held out the ring. "I believe this belongs to you." The room went silent. The Sheikh took the ring, still looking at her. He studied her face like he was seeing something rare. Then, for the first time since arriving, he smiled. "Thank you very much." "Where did you learn Arabic?" he asked in Arabic. "My father was Lebanese," Aaliyah replied. "Same language. He made sure my brothers, and I learned it from childhood." Richard blinked several times. You speak Arabic? The Sheikh ignored him, speaking only to Aliyah now. And you work here as a housekeeper? Yes, sir. What a waste. He shook his head. Someone with your skill should be doing far more than cleaning rooms. Richard jumped in, panicked. Your Excellency, I had no idea she's just part of the cleaning staff. Silence. The word came out cold. Richard shut his mouth instantly. The Sheikh looked back at Aliyah. What is your name? Aliyah, sir. Aliyah, he repeated. A fitting name. It means exalted in Arabic. Your parents chose well. For the first time in years, Aliyah felt seen, not as a uniform, but as a person. I need someone fluent in both Arabic and English, the Sheikh said thoughtfully. Someone I can trust. The official translators always lose nuance. Would you be available for a longer conversation tomorrow? Aliyah glanced at Richard. His face was red, his jaw tight. But the Sheikh's question was direct. Refusing would be disrespectful. Yes, sir. I'll be available. Excellent. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., in this suite, the Sheikh nodded. Thank you again for returning the ring. It's a family heirloom. Losing it would have been a serious matter. Aliyah bowed slightly and left. Her legs were shaking, not from fear, but from something new. Hope. Behind the door, she heard Richard's voice explode in anger. The Sheikh ignored him completely. He had just found exactly what he needed, and Richard had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Aliyah didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed in the small apartment she shared with her mother, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in her mind. The Sheikh had talked with her, not to her, but with her, as if her words mattered. When was the last time anyone had treated her like that? The next morning, she arrived at the Regal Hotel at 7 sharp. The routine was the same, but something inside her had changed. Mrs. Jenkins, the oldest housekeeper, stopped her in the hallway. Be careful, girl. Mr. Dalton doesn't like it when someone outshines him. Aliyah nodded. She already knew. At 10 on the dot, she knocked on the presidential suite door. Her heart was pounding. Come in, the Sheikh's calm voice said. He was sitting near the window, reading something on a tablet. Please sit. She sat at the edge of the chair, straight-backed, hands clasped in her lap. The posture of someone used to being invisible. Relax, the Sheikh said gently. This isn't an interrogation. It's just a conversation. He poured tea from a silver tray, mint tea, by the smell, and handed her a cup. She accepted with both hands, surprised. Men like him didn't usually serve tea to hotel staff. Tell me about yourself, he said. How did a woman like you end up pushing a cleaning cart? Aliyah took a breath. My father, Jamal Carter, came from Lebanon in the 1980s. He opened a grocery store here in Queens, met my mother, and built a life. He taught us Arabic, said language is identity. The Sheikh listened carefully. I went to college for literature. I want to be a translator. But in my final year, my dad got cancer. 6 months later, he was gone. The store went bankrupt. My mom got sick too. I dropped out with 1 semester left. Took the first job I could find. 3 years later, I'm still here. The Sheikh folded his hands. Do you have certificates? I didn't graduate, but I'm fluent in Arabic, English, and Spanish. I read and write all 3. Impressive. He leaned forward. Aliyah, I'll be direct. I came to New York to close a major investment deal with Mr. Dalton, very large. But there's a problem. She waited. I don't trust outsourced translations for something this big. I need someone who understands nuance and who I can trust. You barely know me, but I know character when I see it. You could have kept that ring. No one would have known. But you didn't. That tells me everything I need to know. Aliyah's pulse quickened. What are you proposing, sir? I want to hire you as my private interpreter during my stay, 3 weeks. You'll attend all meetings, dinners, and negotiations. I'll pay $3,000 per week, plus a $10,000 bonus if the deal closes. Aliyah nearly dropped the cup. That was more than she made in a year. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he replied calmly. It's what you deserve. But there's one condition. You must be completely discreet. Everything you hear or see stays between us. Understood? Yes, sir. And one more thing. Mr. Dalton cannot know I'm paying you. Officially, you remain a hotel employee. I'll make sure he releases you to accompany me. Aaliyah thought of the humiliation, the years of invisibility, the opportunity she never imagined having. I accept. The Sheikh smiled. Excellent. Then let's begin today. I have a meeting with Dalton in 1 hour. You be by my side. Wear something professional. Not the uniform. You're not that anymore. Aaliyah stood, still in shock. At the door, she turned. May I ask something? Why me? He paused. Because I've been underestimated too. Because I know what it's like to be seen as less than you are. And because, Aaliyah, people like you deserve to be seen. She left with tears in her eyes. Outside, Marissa, the cleaning supervisor, was waiting, arms crossed, face sour. Think you're special now? She hissed. Mr. Dalton's furious. He's gonna ruin you when the Sheikh leaves. Aaliyah looked her straight in the eye. Maybe, but for 3 weeks, I'll be something you'll never be, Marissa. Important. She walked down the hall, head high, for the first time in 3 years. During her lunch break, Aaliyah left the Regal Hotel, took the subway to a nearby mall, and walked into the first professional clothing store she found. She had $120 left in her account, everything she owned. She bought a simple gray blazer, a white blouse, and black pants. Nothing fancy, just respectable. She changed in the fitting room and shoved the housekeeper uniform into the bottom of her bag. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. At 2 p.m., she stood at the meeting room door. The Sheikh was already inside with Richard Dalton and 2 unknown men, lawyers by the look of their suits. She knocked. Richard opened the door, irritated. What do you want? We're in an important meeting. She's here at my request, the Sheikh said evenly from the table. Come in, Aaliyah. Richard's face flushed. Your Excellency, she is my private interpreter for these negotiations, the Sheikh cut in. Is that a problem? His tone was calm, but sharp enough to slice. Richard forced a smile. Of course not, Your Excellency. Aaliyah entered, took a seat beside the Sheikh. Richard glared, but said nothing. The lawyers glanced at her curiously. Gentlemen, the Sheikh began in English, then switched to Arabic. Before we start, I want to make one thing clear. Aaliyah translated word for word. All conversations will be translated by Miss Carter. I trust her completely. Every Arabic document goes through her first. Non-negotiable. Richard's jaw tightened. Naturally, Your Excellency. The meeting began. Richard presented slides, expansion plans, profit charts, glossy photos of previous projects. Everything sounded perfect, too perfect. The Sheikh asked in Arabic. Aaliyah translated to English. Richard responded in English. She translated back. It was a steady rhythm for 2 hours. During a coffee break, Richard stepped out to answer a call. The lawyers went for a smoke. Only the Sheikh and Aaliyah remained. What do you think? He asked quietly in Arabic. About the project? About everything. The man, the numbers. Aaliyah hesitated, then spoke. The projections look inflated. No business grows 30% every year for 5 straight years. Not in hospitality. The Sheikh smiled slightly. I thought the same. And when you ask specific questions, he avoids them. He changes the subject fast. Exactly. The Sheikh lowered his voice. Aaliyah, I need you to help me. Something discreet. What is it? I want you to look into the hotel's real condition. Old contracts, licenses, records. Anything that tells the truth. Quietly, her pulse quickened. You think he's hiding something? I'm certain of it. Men like Dalton don't get rich by accident. But we must be careful. He can't know. Aaliyah nodded slowly. I can do that. Good. Use your knowledge of the building. Staff move everywhere. They see everything. You know where things are buried. She nodded again. I'll find the truth. Be cautious, the Sheikh warned. Desperate men are dangerous. When the meeting resumed, Aaliyah no longer heard words. She analyzed patterns. Dalton's forced charm, his shifting tone, the nervous glances between him and his lawyers. She noticed that some numbers on the slides didn't match earlier ones. She caught the sweat forming at his temples when the Sheikh asked about building permits. After the meeting, she went straight to the basement. The storage room smelled of dust and rusting pipes. Forgotten file boxes lined the walls. She dug for hours, phone flashlight cutting through the dark. Old contracts, unpaid invoices, city fines, dozens of them. She started taking photos. Then footsteps. She turned off the light and hid behind a column. Dalton's voice echoed down the stairs. "No, you don't get it," he hissed into his phone. "If this deal doesn't go through, the bank forecloses. I owe 16 million. 16. The Sheikh can't find out half those permits are fake. Do whatever it takes. Forge new ones if you have to. I'm paying 50,000 for clean copies by tomorrow." He ended the call and stood breathing heavily. Then he climbed back up. Aaliyah waited 10 minutes before moving. Her hands shook, not from fear but adrenaline. She had proof. Dalton was bankrupt, falsifying documents, preparing a fraud worth millions. That night, Aaliyah sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by papers and her phone. Photos of forged contracts, unpaid fines, and expired permits filled the screen. It was all there, enough to destroy Richard Dalton's entire operation. At 11 p.m., she attached every photo to an email and sent it to the Sheikh's private address. No message, no subject line, just evidence. 5 minutes later, her phone rang. "You saw it?" she asked. "I did," said the Sheikh, voice steady but tense. "It's worse than I imagined. He's buried in debt and falsifying everything. What do? We let him finish the fraud. Let him prepare the fake documents, the contract, everything. Once he signs, we'll expose it all. That way, there's no escape. And if something goes wrong, it won't. I've handled worse. But Aaliyah, be careful. Dalton's desperate, and desperate men are dangerous." She hung up and stared out the window. The city lights looked different tonight. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt powerful. The next few days were a quiet war. Aaliyah moved through the hotel as if nothing had changed. Dalton still sneered at her, unaware of what was coming. Each morning, she joined the Sheikh's meetings, translating while quietly watching Dalton dig himself deeper. The Sheikh acted perfectly calm, polite, engaged, even complimentary. Dalton mistook it for victory. In secret, Aaliyah kept digging. She found lawsuits from unpaid suppliers, missing severance funds for employees, and doctored audit reports. Every discovery tightened the noose. One afternoon, as she crossed the service corridor, Dalton cornered her near the pantry. "You're getting a little too comfortable, aren't you?" he said through gritted teeth, sitting next to the Sheikh like some executive. "Don't forget who you are, mate. Always will be." Aaliyah looked him straight in the eye. "You're afraid of me." He laughed sharply. "Afraid? Don't flatter yourself. You are. Because for once, someone's looking at you and seeing what you really are." His face darkened. "Be careful what you say." "Or what? You'll fire me?" "Go ahead. The Sheikh made it clear he wants me there. Firing me would insult the man about to invest millions in your hotel, assuming he still will." His jaw clenched. For a second, she thought he'd hit her. Instead, he hissed, "When this is over, you'll regret it. That I promise." He walked away, fist tight. That night, the Sheikh asked her to meet at a small restaurant outside the hotel, away from security cameras. They sat in a quiet corner. "My lawyers confirmed everything," he said softly. "The documents Dalton showed yesterday are forgeries. The building permits, financials, even the environmental clearances, all fake." Aaliyah felt her stomach twist. "So the entire deal is a lie." "Exactly. He wants $50 million up front to expand, but in truth, it's to cover his debts. Tomorrow, he'll present the final contract. I'll act interested, ask for 48 hours to review. In that time, my legal team will move. When we reveal the evidence, he'll have already incriminated himself. You're going to destroy him." He destroyed himself. "I'll just make sure the consequences arrive." He took a sip of tea. "But the employees, I plan to buy the hotel after the foreclosure. Keep the staff, clean the leadership. They'll be safe." Aaliyah nodded slowly. "Good. They deserve that. I need one last thing from you," the Sheikh continued. "During tomorrow's meeting, translate every clause, every word of the final contract. I'll record everything. That recording will be evidence. I'll do it." They talked for hours about the plan, about Lebanon, about her father. For a moment, Aaliyah forgot the weight of it all. When she went home that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The next morning, Aaliyah woke before dawn. She tied her hair neatly, put on her gray blazer, and looked in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't a housekeeper anymore. At 9 a.m., she arrived at the Regal Hotel. Richard Dalton was already pacing in the conference room, shuffling papers, fake smiling at everyone who entered. "Big day," he said to her with forced cheer. "Don't screw up the translations." Aaliyah didn't answer. At exactly 10 o'clock, Mr. Khalid al-Rashid walked in with two lawyers. His expression was unreadable. "Good morning, gentlemen," he said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Let's review the final agreement." Richard slid a sleek leather folder across the table. Inside were 50 pages, dense legal text, forged signatures, fabricated data. "This is the finalized contract, Your Excellency. $50 million up front, total investment of $200 million over 5 years. You get 40% of the ownership. I retain 60. Profits divided accordingly." The Sheikh flipped through each page slowly. "Miss Carter," he said, "please translate every clause." Aaliyah opened her notebook. "Yes, sir." For 2 hours, she translated line by line, her voice steady while the Sheikh secretly recorded the entire session on his phone. Richard grew more anxious with each page. His hands fidgeted. Sweat formed at his temples. He drank water every few minutes. When she finished, the Sheikh closed the folder. "Very well. I'll need 48 hours for final legal review. Then we'll sign." Richard's smile faltered. 48 hours? That's unnecessary, Your Excellency. Everything is ready. "I'm sure it is," the Sheikh replied calmly. "Still, due diligence is standard procedure. I'm sure a man of business understands." Richard forced a chuckle. "Of course." The Sheikh rose. "Then we'll reconvene in 2 days." When they left, Aaliyah glanced back through the glass door. Richard sat alone at the table, head in his hands. He knew he was running out of time. He just didn't know how little he had left. The next 2 days were tense. The staff whispered about canceled bookings and closed-door meetings. Lawyers came and went. Marissa, the bitter supervisor, cornered Aaliyah in the staff room. "You think you've won? I heard Dalton's planning something. Once the Sheikh signs, he's firing you, and you'll never work in this city again." Aaliyah smiled faintly. "Maybe, but we'll see who's still standing in 48 hours. That night, she barely slept. At 3 in the morning, her phone rang. "You're awake," said the Sheikh. "So are you. I just received confirmation. The evidence is airtight. Fraud, forgery, false accounting. He won't escape this. Are you ready?" "Yes," she said quietly. "But I'm worried he'll lash out. He's cornered. That's why my security team will be in the room tomorrow. Stay beside me. Nothing will happen to you. I promise." Aaliyah exhaled. "Then I'll see you in the morning." She hung up and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow would change everything. At 10 a.m., the final meeting began. The Sheikh entered with 4 attorneys. Aaliyah followed, composed but alert. Moments later, Richard arrived with his own lawyers and an older man, Charles Whitmore, chairman of the hotel's board. Richard looked almost confident again. "Mr. Al-Rashid," he said, shaking hands, "it's an honor to finalize this partnership." The Sheikh didn't smile. "Sit down, Mr. Dalton." His tone made everyone pause. Once seated, the Sheikh spoke in Arabic. "Aaliyah, translate every word." She nodded. "For the last 15 days, I've conducted a private investigation into this hotel and its management," the Sheikh said. "What I discovered is alarming." Aaliyah translated clearly. Richard blinked. "Investigation? Your Excellency, You will remain silent until I finish." The Sheikh opened a folder. Item 1. The construction licenses you presented are forged. Verified by the city's Department of Buildings. That's not possible. Item 2. Your financial statement claims $12 million in annual profit. The IRS records show $800,000. A discrepancy of 1,500%. Charles Whitmore turned to Richard, pale. "Richard, tell me this isn't true." The Sheikh continued. Item 3. The hotel is mortgaged for $16 million. Payment due in 2 weeks. You failed to disclose this. The room froze. Richard's lawyers whispered furiously. Item 4. 3 suppliers suing for non-payment totaling $2 million. Item 5. Staff severance funds unpaid for 8 months. Item 6. Falsified audits. Item 7. Document forgery in federal records. Each item hit like a hammer. Aaliyah's voice didn't waver once. Richard's breathing grew ragged. You can't do this. You have no proof. The Sheikh gestured to his lawyers. One slid a legal packet across the table. Filed this morning with the Manhattan District Court. Charges of corporate fraud, forgery, and attempted embezzlement. Also a motion for expedited foreclosure on behalf of your creditors. Richard grabbed the paper, eyes darting. No, this is a setup. He pointed at Aaliyah. That maid, she did this. She's lying. Aaliyah met his glare, unflinching. She did nothing but reveal the truth, the Sheikh said coldly. You humiliated her. You humiliated countless employees. Now you face the consequences. Whitmore stood up furious. Richard, you've disgraced this entire company. I resign effective immediately. 2 other board members followed. Richard's voice broke. You'll regret this. All of you. You'll have time to reflect, the Sheikh replied. Because in a few months, when the bank forecloses, I'll be the one buying this hotel. And when I do, Aaliyah will take your place as director of operations. Her first order will be to fire you. The room erupted, lawyers shouting, Richard yelling, chairs scraping. But Aaliyah heard none of it. She was looking out the window, watching the skyline shimmer in the distance. For the first time in years, she felt justice. The following weeks were chaos. News outlets caught wind of the scandal. Hotel CEO accused of multi-million-dollar fraud against Middle Eastern investor. Richard Dalton's name became a curse in New York business circles. The Regal Hotel was in free fall. Employees whispered in hallways. Suppliers demanded payments. Lawyers crowded the lobby. Through it all, Aaliyah Carter stayed quiet. The Sheikh made sure she was protected, housing her in the presidential suite until the storm passed. You've done your part, he told her. Now let time do the rest. 3 weeks later, he returned to her suite with a smile that told her everything. It's over, he said. The bank foreclosed. No one would lend Dalton a cent. We're buying the property next week for $7 million, less than a third of its real value. And then, she asked, then we rebuild it right. You'll be the new director of operations. You know this place better than anyone. Aaliyah blinked. Sir, I've never managed anything in my life. He smiled. You managed your survival here for 3 years. You uncovered fraud without training. You faced a man twice your power and didn't flinch. Leadership isn't a diploma, it's character. A week later, the sale closed. The Sheikh officially owned the Regal Hotel. The next morning, Aaliyah saw Richard Dalton for the last time. He was leaving his office carrying a single box, disheveled, unshaven, broken. When he saw her, he stopped. They stood in the hallway that had witnessed his insults and her humiliation. Are you happy now? He asked bitterly. You destroyed me. Everything I built. Aaliyah didn't look away. I didn't destroy you, Mr. Dalton. You did. I worked 20 years for this place, he said, voice trembling. And you were nobody. A maid. You show up and take everything from me in 2 weeks. I didn't take anything. I just revealed the truth. Why? His voice cracked. Because I embarrassed you? Because I told you your place? Aaliyah took a step forward. No, because you were going to cheat an honest man. Because the people who work for you didn't deserve to lose their jobs over your lies. He laughed weakly. You're naive. Every businessman lies a little. That's how the game works. If you need lies to win, she said calmly, then you've already lost. He glared, eyes bloodshot. You'll regret this someday. No, she said. You will. Because justice doesn't disappear. It just takes time. She walked past him without looking back. 2 weeks later, the hotel auction went public. The Sheikh purchased it officially under a new holding company, Al Rashid Hospitality Group. Dalton didn't appear. Rumors said he'd left the city. The following morning, the Sheikh gathered all 120 hotel employees in the main ballroom. Aaliyah stood beside him on stage, wearing a black suit, no uniform, no badge. Good morning, the Sheikh said. I know the last month has been hard. You've heard rumors. You've worried about your jobs. But I'm here to tell you this. No one is being fired. Everyone keeps their position, and salaries will be reviewed. From now on, this hotel will be built on respect. Murmurs spread across the room. Then applause, slow at first, then thunderous. He continued, and I have one final announcement. Effective today, Ms. Aaliyah Carter will serve as Director of Operations for the Regal Hotel. The room went silent, then exploded into cheers. Mrs. Jenkins cried openly. Only Marissa scowled, muttering under her breath as she slipped out of the room. After the meeting, Aaliyah walked into what used to be Dalton's office. The view of Manhattan spread wide before her. The same skyline she'd once only glimpsed through guest windows while cleaning. She sat in a leather chair, hands steady, heart calm. A knock. Come in, she said. It was Mrs. Jenkins, eyes still red. I wanted to apologize, she said softly, for not believing in you, for telling you to stay quiet. Aaliyah smiled gently. You were trying to protect me. You don't owe me an apology. The older woman squeezed her hand. You did what none of us dared. You showed us that we matter too. When Mrs. Jenkins left, Aaliyah looked out the window again. For the first time, the city didn't look unreachable. She thought of her father, of his words about dignity and language. Somewhere deep inside, she could almost hear him say, I'm proud of you, Habibti. She let herself cry, quietly, briefly, and then she wiped her face. She had work to do. A hotel to rebuild. A legacy to start. The housekeeper was gone. The director had arrived. 6 months later, the Regal Hotel looked the same on the outside. Same marble floors, same chandelier. But inside, everything had changed. The fear was gone. Employees smiled, greeted each other by name, and worked with pride. Respect had replaced hierarchy. Aaliyah Carter, now sitting behind the same desk that once belonged to Richard Dalton, managed a thriving hotel. Occupancy was up to 92%, reviews were glowing, and staff turnover was nearly zero. One morning, her office phone rang. Ms. Carter, her assistant said, Mr. Al-Rashid on line 1. She picked up. Good morning, sir. How are things? Running smoothly, she said. Revenue up, staff happy. The place finally feels alive. He chuckled. I knew you'd make it work. Oh, and there's news. Dalton's trial ended yesterday. 3 years in prison for fraud and forgery. $5 million in fines. He won't be managing anything again. Aaliyah paused. Justice came then. It always does, said the Sheikh. By the way, I'll be back in New York next month. I want to discuss expanding. I'm opening a second hotel, and I want you leading the project. When the call ended, Aaliyah leaned back in her chair, looking out over the skyline. She remembered the same view years ago, except back then she'd been cleaning someone else's window. Now she was deciding the future of an empire. A soft knock came at the door. Come in. It was Marissa, now managing the housekeeping team. Her tone was humble. We need your approval for the new uniforms. The staff voted on the designs. Aaliyah looked them over and nodded. Approved. And Marissa, thank you for asking their opinion first. That's good management. Marissa hesitated, then said quietly, I'm trying to be better. I know, Aaliyah said. That's why you're still here. That evening, Aaliyah drove across the city to her mother's apartment, or rather, their new apartment. 2 bedrooms, a balcony overlooking the park, and no mold on the walls. Her mother was sitting outside, reading. How was work, baby? Busy but good, Aaliyah smiled. Mom, do you think Dad'll be proud? Her mother took her hand. He wouldn't be proud of the job title. He'd be proud of how you got there, without losing who you are. They sat together watching the sunset, quiet and content. That night, after her mother went to bed, Aaliyah opened her laptop. A new email notification appeared. Subject, Scholarship Approval. Dear Ms. Carter, after reviewing your application, we're pleased to offer you full reinstatement and a full scholarship to complete your final semester of your literature degree. Congratulations and welcome back. Aaliyah read it twice, then laughed and cried at the same time. She called the Sheikh immediately. I'm going back to college. That's wonderful, he said. You'll finish what you started. Classes in the morning, hotel in the afternoon. You can handle both. 3 months later, she walked through the campus gates again. Same hallways, same classrooms, but she was no longer the same woman. Her old Arabic professor recognized her. Aaliyah? You came back. I did. I heard your story. Something about a sheikh and a hotel. Is that true? She smiled. Every word. 6 months later, she stood on stage in a black cap and gown, diploma in hand. Her mother was in the front row, crying. Mrs. Jenkins was there too. And next to her, Mr. Al-Rashid, who had flown back just to watch. When the dean unexpectedly called her to the microphone, Aaliyah hesitated, then stepped forward. I didn't plan a speech, she began. But I want to say this. 5 years ago, I left this university because I thought I'd failed. I thought cleaning hotel rooms meant I'd wasted my education. But I was wrong. The auditorium went still. No job defines your worth. What defines you is what you do when no one is watching, whether you hold on to your dignity, your honesty, and your courage. Because one day, those things will be the reason someone sees you for who you really are. Applause filled the hall. Some students stood. Others cried. Opportunity only finds those who keep working while they wait, she finished. A standing ovation followed. 5 years later, Aaliyah was back in the same presidential suite where everything began, but now she was showing it to international investors. This is our flagship suite, she explained. 2,000 square feet, panoramic view of Manhattan. When the tour ended and everyone left, she stayed behind a moment, alone in the silence. She looked around, remembering the day she'd been humiliated here. Remembered Dalton's voice sneering, "People like you need to learn your place." Aaliyah smiled. "I did learn my place, Mr. Dalton," she said softly. "It's not where someone puts me. It's where I decide to stand." She closed the door, head high, ready for whatever came next. Because she wasn't a maid anymore. She was Aaliyah Carter, director, graduate, and proof that integrity wins, no matter how long it takes. The call came on a Wednesday morning. "Pack your things," said Mr. Al-Rashid on the phone. "We're flying to Miami next week." Aaliyah frowned. "For what?" "The next hotel. Same brand. Bigger risks. You'll run point." He hung up before she could answer. By Monday, she was standing in front of an empty beachfront property, the skeleton of what would become the Regal Bay Resort. Sunlight bounced off the glass framework. Construction dust hung in the air. A dozen contractors waited for instructions, all men in hard hats, all looking doubtful when they realized who the new project lead was. The head architect, a man named Stephen Grant, greeted her without hiding his skepticism. "You're the operations director from New York, right?" "That's right." He crossed his arms. "No offense, Ms. Carter, but we've had 3 site managers before you. They all quit. This job isn't about hotel manners. It's mud, delays, and angry investors." "Good," Aaliyah said. "Then I won't have to pretend to be polite." He blinked. "Excuse me? You said it yourself. It's not about manners. So let's get to work." By noon, she'd reorganized the entire schedule, canceled a supplier that was overcharging, and called a meeting that lasted 2 hours longer than anyone wanted. By sunset, the workers stopped doubting. She wasn't loud. She was precise. That night, in her temporary apartment overlooking the site, she called her mother. "You sound tired," her mother said. "I am," Aaliyah admitted. "But it's a good tired. Your father used to say that's the only kind that matters." She smiled at the memory. "Then I guess I'm doing it right." 2 months later, Miami's humidity had turned her routines into clockwork. Early site visits, staff hiring, vendor calls, investor meetings. The Sheikh came twice, always watching in silence, taking notes. One evening he joined her on the half-finished terrace, where the ocean spread out like hammered steel. "You've done well," he said. "The investors are satisfied." "I'm not," she said. "We're behind on kitchen installation and short on trained staff." He looked amused. "You sound like me. Maybe I learned from you." He was quiet for a moment. "When this opens, I want it run differently. Local staff, full benefits, training programs like you built in New York. Make it a rule. Every employee must see a path upward." "I was already planning that," she said. He smiled. "Then the legacy is safe." A week before opening, the storm hit. A hurricane off the Atlantic tore half the scaffolding down, flooded the first floor, and delayed everything. The investors panicked. Stephen Grant wanted to call it off. In the middle of the chaos, Aaliyah stood in the lobby knee-deep in water, barking orders. "Move the generators to the back. Secure the glass panels. Get every piece of equipment off the floor now." Someone shouted, "We'll never finish in time." Aaliyah turned. "Then we'll finish late. But we'll finish." 3 days later, the storm passed. The crew returned to find her in the same soaked clothes, writing new timelines by hand. No one argued anymore. 3 months later, the Regal Bay Resort opened at full capacity. The staff, mostly local hires, stood in clean uniforms, proud and nervous. Cameras flashed. The Sheikh gave a short speech about perseverance and then stepped aside. "This place exists because one person refused to quit," he said. "Aaliyah Carter, please." She walked up, the applause steady but not theatrical. "Thank you," she said simply. "We built this place with the same principle we built the first one, with respect. No one here worked for someone. We work with each other. That's the difference." She looked out at the crowd of workers, not the investors. "And if anyone asks how a maid ended up running 2 hotels, tell them it wasn't luck. It was work." Later that night, long after the guests had gone, she stood alone on the terrace. The ocean was calm again. Her phone buzzed. A message from the Sheikh. "Next project, Los Angeles. Are you ready?" She typed back one line. "Always." Then she put the phone down, looked at the waves, and whispered to herself. On to the next fight. The Sheikh's jet landed at LAX on a Thursday morning. By noon, Aaliyah Carter was in a black SUV, staring out the window at the endless sprawl of Los Angeles. Palms, billboards, and traffic. It looked like a city that never stopped talking. Their new property sat on Sunset Boulevard, an abandoned hotel once called the Sterling Grand, closed for 2 years after a labor scandal and fire code violations. Half the windows were boarded up, graffiti covered the walls, and a faded sign still read "Luxury Lives Here." "This is the one?" Aaliyah asked. The Sheikh nodded. "The bones are good. The reputation is not. That's your problem now." He left 2 hours later for meetings, leaving her with the keys, a local accountant, and a team of lawyers. The first meeting was with city inspectors. The lead inspector, Daniel Harlow, flipped through a clipboard. "Ms. Carter, this place failed 12 separate safety audits. Electrical, plumbing, fire exits, you name it. It's a nightmare." "Can be fixed?" she asked. "With money, yes. With politics, maybe." He looked at her. "But I'll tell you this. The unions here still remember the old management. They're not going to welcome a new boss easily." "I'm not here to be their boss," she said. "I'm here to rebuild the place right." He raised an eyebrow. "We'll see." By the second week, the project was already under attack. Local news ran headlines like, "Foreign billionaire buys troubled hotel. Union jobs at risk." Social media filled with speculation. Former employees protested outside the gate. Aaliyah didn't hide. She walked out front, met the protesters face to face. A woman with a megaphone shouted, "You're going to fire us like the last owner did." "No," Aaliyah said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're reopening this hotel. Every worker here gets first priority in hiring. We'll start training programs next month. But this time, everyone plays by the same rules, respect up and down." A few reporters filmed. One yelled, "What makes you different from the last management?" Aaliyah looked straight at the camera. "They ran a hotel. I'm building a workplace." The clip went viral. By the next day, the protests turned into interviews. The Sheikh called from Dubai, his tone almost proud. "You've learned how to use their own noise against them." "Not noise," she said. "Just truth, spoken louder than usual." 3 months in, the renovation was ahead of schedule, but the politics were worse. Local council members demanded favors for permits. Contractors threatened walkouts. The union wanted wage guarantees. In one tense meeting, the union leader, Gloria Rivera, pointed across the table. "You talk about respect, Ms. Carter, but talk is cheap. We want contracts signed, not promises." Aaliyah leaned forward. "You'll get both. Signed contracts, clear pay scales, health care. But I want accountability on your side, too. No ghost workers. No fake overtime sheets." Gloria smirked. "You don't play like management." "I'm not management," Aaliyah said evenly. "I'm someone who's been in your shoes. I used to scrub floors. I know exactly what gets stolen from workers when no one's looking." That silenced the room. Deals were signed 2 days later. 6 months later, the Sterling Grand Los Angeles reopened, restored, modern, and fully staffed with former employees who now earn double their old wage. The press called it the comeback hotel. The governor sent a letter praising it as a model for ethical redevelopment. But the real test came at the first investor gala. Celebrities, politicians, and journalists packed the ballroom. The same chandeliers that once hung over corruption now lit up redemption. During her opening speech, Aaliyah said simply, "This hotel was built on lies once. We rebuilt it on work." The applause was steady, not exaggerated. Real. Later that night, she stepped out onto the rooftop terrace, where the city lights stretched forever. The Sheikh joined her, hands in his pockets. "You've done it again," he said. 3 hotels, 3 turnarounds. She shook her head. "No, just 3 chances to prove that people can change if someone give them a fair shot." He smiled. "Then what comes next?" She looked at the skyline. "Chicago. Maybe DC. I want to build more than hotels now. I want a training network, real schools for hospitality. Not just to teach service, but dignity." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll build that. Together." Aaliyah glanced back at the glowing ballroom. Her reflection in the glass wore the same calm she had the day she returned that lost ring years ago. Except now, the world finally saw her for who she was. "Then let's get to work," she said. And below them, the city kept moving, loud, restless, alive, exactly the kind of place where people like her belonged. A year later, Los Angeles faded into the rearview mirror as Aaliyah Carter stood in a quiet lot on the south side of Chicago. The building in front of her wasn't glamorous, just an old vocational center with cracked windows and faded paint. But she saw what it could be. "This is it," she said. Mr. Khalid al-Rashid looked around, unimpressed. "A school. An academy," she corrected. "A place to train workers before they ever have to take abuse for a paycheck." He gave a small nod. "Name it." She didn't hesitate. The Carter Hospitality Academy. Renovation began in winter. Instead of marble or chandeliers, Aaliyah spent her budget on classrooms, dorm rooms, and industrial kitchens. She hired local teachers, veterans of the service industry, and translators for immigrant students who barely spoke English. By spring, the first 50 trainees arrived, men and women from shelters, single parents, former inmates, refugees. None of them had resumes. Most had never been told they were capable of anything more than survival. On the first day, Aaliyah walked into the auditorium. The students fell silent. "I'm not here to lecture," she said. "I'm here to tell you one thing. No job is beneath you, but no one has the right to make you feel beneath them. This place will teach you how to work with skill and how to walk with dignity. Both matter." The applause was hesitant, but the eyes watching her were awake. Weeks turned into months. She spent mornings teaching conflict resolution, afternoons reviewing internship placements with hotels across the city, nights answering phone calls from students who wanted to quit. One evening, a young man named Luis Mendoza stayed behind after class. "I can't keep up," he said quietly. "I can't read half the forms. I'm too slow." Aaliyah closed her laptop. "What did you do before this?" "Dishwasher. 2 years. Got fired when I asked for overtime pay." She leaned forward. "Do you want to learn or be comfortable?" Luis frowned. "Learn, I guess. Then you'll stay. You're not too slow. You're just not used to anyone waiting for you to get it right." He didn't speak, but his shoulders loosened. The next week, he was the first to arrive every morning. By summer, the academy had graduated its first class. 50 students, 43 placed in full-time jobs, 12 in management tracks. Local news covered the story. From cleaner to CEO, Aaliyah Carter opens free hospitality school for underserved workers. She didn't do interviews. She let the results speak. The Sheikh flew in for the ceremony. Standing at the podium, he said, "When I met Ms. Carter, she was returning a ring. Today, she's returning something greater, opportunity." When the applause faded, he turned to her. "You realize you've started something you can't stop." "That's the point," she said. Months later, during an evening inspection, Aaliyah walked through the empty halls of the academy. Posters on the wall showed the new branches opening: Houston, Miami, Newark. She stopped in front of a classroom where a new batch of students was cleaning up after dinner service. Luis, now a teaching assistant, saw her and waved. Miss Carter, we're running late. Stove broke again. Then fix it, she said simply. He grinned. Already did. She nodded and kept walking. The air smelled of soap and determination. At the end of the hallway, a window looked out over the city. Lights shimmered against the dark, and for a second she thought of her father again. The grocery store, the late nights, the way he used to say, "Keep building something that outlives you." She whispered, "I'm trying, Dad." Her phone buzzed. A message from the Sheikh. Board approved, funding for expansion. Next site, Detroit. You lead. Aaliyah typed back one word. Always. Then she turned off the lights, locked the door, and stepped into the cold Chicago air. The city hummed around her, loud, imperfect, alive. The kind of place where work never ended, and where she intended to keep building until everyone, everywhere, had a fair start. By the time the third academy opened in Detroit, Aaliyah's name had become shorthand for reform. Business journals called her the hospitality revolutionary. Cable news used her story to fill American Dream segments. Politicians began quoting her speeches without permission. Then came the invitations, panels, awards, advisory boards, and finally, the call for Washington. She sat in a glass conference room in D.C., staring at a table full of people in suits. On one side, representatives from the Department of Labor and Commerce. On the other, executives from the country's biggest hotel chains. A senator with perfect hair and practiced sincerity smiled at her. "Ms. Carter, your academies have shown impressive results. Graduation rates, job placement, wage improvement. It's exceptional. That's why we want to partner with you." Aaliyah didn't answer right away. "Partner how?" "We'd like to establish a national training initiative under federal funding, using your model. You'd advise the board, of course. The program would operate under government oversight." She looked down at the folder they'd handed her. The logo wasn't hers. The motto was rewritten. The words Carter Academy were missing. "So you want to copy the model, rename it, and put a political ribbon on it," she said. The senator kept smiling. "You'd have influence, funding, scale. Think how many people you could help." Aaliyah closed the folder. "I built this to stay free from politics. You put my name next to yours, and every election it becomes a slogan. That's not what we're doing." The hotel executives shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a tall man from Atlantic Grand Resorts, leaned forward. "Ms. Carter, let's be practical. You can't run this alone forever. Let us help manage the expansion. We'll brand it, franchise it, turn it into a nationwide network. You'll be a household name." She looked at him, calm but cold. "I don't need to be a brand. I need people to have fair jobs. You already had the power to do that and didn't." The meeting ended early. The senator shook her hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're idealistic, Ms. Carter. I respect that. But idealists don't last in this town." Aaliyah met his gaze. "Neither do frauds." 2 weeks later, the story broke. Government training program rejected by hotel CEO turned reformer. The networks framed her as stubborn, naive, anti-growth. Anonymous sources accused her of hoarding influence. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Cartergate. Hashtag hospitality hoax. At the academy, students were confused. Some worried funding would vanish. Others asked if the rumors were true. Aaliyah called an emergency assembly. "The news will say what it wants," she told them. "Let them. We're not here to win headlines. We're here to build something that lasts longer than any scandal." A hand went up. "Luis. But they're saying they'll start their own program without you." "Then we work harder," she said. "If they want to copy what we built, let them. Just make sure the original is better." The room broke into quiet applause. That night, she met the Sheikh at a quiet restaurant in Georgetown. He looked older than before, grayer, slower, but his eyes were sharp. "You did the right thing," he said. "It doesn't feel like it," Aaliyah replied. "They're dragging my name through the mud." "That's how you know you matter," he said. "Power doesn't fight what it doesn't fear." She sipped her coffee. "They'll keep coming. The money, the lobbyists, the politicians. They want to own what we built. Then we outlast them," he said simply. "One hotel at a time. One academy at a time. Institutions don't protect truth. People do." She nodded. Then we'll need more people. He smiled faintly. That's what you're already creating. 3 months later, the government program launched anyway, under a different name, with glossy ads and celebrity endorsements. It promised everything hers did. Within 6 months, it collapsed under corruption allegations and mismanagement. Meanwhile, the Carter Academies kept graduating students. Quietly, consistently. The press stopped mocking her and started calling again. She declined every interview. One evening, she stood in the new Detroit training kitchen watching a class of students' perfect table service. Luis walked in with a letter. "Another government inquiry?" she asked. He grinned. "No, it's from the White House. They want you to speak at the Labor Reform Summit next month." She folded the letter once, placed it on the counter, and said, "If they want to listen, I'll talk. But I won't dress it up for them." "What will you say?" "The same thing I tell everyone. Respect isn't policy. It's practice." Luis nodded slowly. "That'll hit." "I'm not aiming for applause," she said. "I'm aiming for change." That night, she stood alone outside the academy, watching snow fall across the parking lot. The neon sign glowed faintly. Carter Hospitality Academy. She thought of every insult, every threat, every battle that led there. Then she whispered what had become her rule for life. Keep your purpose louder than their power. Then she turned off the lights and went back to work. The stage lights were sharp enough to sting. The backdrop behind Aaliyah Carter read National Labor Reform Summit. Washington, D.C. rows of senators, CEOs, journalists, and labor leaders fill the hall. Cameras blinked like restless eyes. The moderator's voice echoed. "Our next speaker, director of the Carter Hospitality Academy, Ms. Aaliyah Carter." Applause rose, polite but uncertain. She walked up to the podium in a plain navy suit. No jewelry, no makeup beyond necessity. She didn't smile. "Good afternoon," she began. Her voice was steady, measured. "I was asked to speak about training programs and workforce innovation. But I'm not here to sell slogans. I'm here to talk about what's broken." The audience shifted uneasily. "I've cleaned hotel bathrooms for 8 hours straight. I've been yelled at for moving too slowly. I've seen managers steal tips and call it policy. And I've seen good workers quit because they thought respect was something they had to earn, not something they already deserved." She paused, letting the silence stretch. Every statistic you've read about low-wage labor has a face. The people who serve your food, change your sheets, or clean your floors are not invisible. They are the infrastructure of your success. And if you build wealth on their exhaustion, that's not capitalism, it's dependence. One of the senators whispered something to another. Cameras zoomed closer. She went on. "People keep asking me what made my academies work. It wasn't funding. It wasn't government partnerships. It was trust. We trusted workers with training, responsibility, and fair pay. And they paid that trust back with loyalty and excellence. You want reform? Start there." The moderator shifted in his seat. "Ms. Carter, are you suggesting federal oversight has no place in labor programs?" "I'm suggesting that people who've never worked a 12-hour shift shouldn't decide what's efficient." A murmur rippled through the hall. Some smiled. Others frowned. She didn't care. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," she continued. "I'm here to remind you that reform isn't about building better systems. It's about building better habits. Respect isn't a program. It's a daily decision." She closed her notebook. "If you want my proposal, it's simple. Replace fear with dignity, replace token diversity with real opportunity, and stop treating workers like numbers that only count when they disappear." Then she stepped back. For 2 seconds, there was silence. Then one person clapped. Then two. Then the whole room stood. That night, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Requests for interviews, partnerships, endorsements. She ignored them all until a call came from an unknown number. "Ms. Carter," a woman's voice said. "This is Elaine Morris from the president's office. The president watched your speech. He wants to meet you privately tomorrow morning." Aaliyah said nothing for a moment. "Is this about optics or policy?" "Policy," the voice replied. "He says it's time to change how the country treats labor, and he thinks you can help write that change." The next morning, she stood outside the West Wing in the cold air, coffee in hand, watching the flag ripple above her. She didn't know what the next chapter would be: advisor, reformer, or something else entirely, but she knew one thing. For the first time, the people who cleaned America's rooms were finally being invited into one. And this time, she wasn't walking in alone. The Oval Office was smaller than Aaliyah expected. Neat, quiet, all the power of a nation wrapped in white walls and thick carpet. The President of the United States stood by the window when she entered. He turned and smiled the way practiced politicians do. "Ms. Carter, it's an honor. Please sit." She didn't. "You asked me here to talk about labor reform. Let's talk." He chuckled softly, trying to disarm her. "Straight to it, I see. I like that." They sat. Two aides waited by the door with tablets. A recorder blinked red on the table. "I watched your speech," he began. "We need that honesty. We're forming a new National Workforce Advisory Council, and I want you on it, Special Advisor for Labor Modernization." Aaliyah studied him. "You mean photo ops and press releases?" "No," he said. "Real input. Policy drafts, funding decisions, legislative influence. You'd have direct access to the Department of Labor. It's a chance to make systemic change." She looked at the folder he slid across the table. Title: Appointment Agreement. The salary was obscene. The reach was unlimited. "What's the catch?" she asked. He hesitated. "You'd have to suspend operations of your private academies during your term. Conflict of interest. Government ethics rules." There it was. "So to fix the system," she said slowly, "I'd have to shut down the only system that's actually working." He spread his hands. "Temporarily. Think long-term, Ms. Carter. You've inspired millions, but inspiration needs structure. You can't run forever on goodwill." Aaliyah leaned back. Goodwill built 3 academies, 5,000 jobs, and 0 corruption scandals. Structure built everything that broke them. The president's smile tightened. "Idealism is beautiful, but it doesn't move budgets. Neither does hypocrisy," she said. One aide cleared his throat. "Ma'am, you'd have real power to help workers at scale." "I already do," she said quietly. Without permission. Silence. The president looked at her like someone examining a puzzle he couldn't solve. "You'll regret walking away from this." "Maybe, but I'd regret selling out more." She stood. "Thank you for the offer." As she reached the door, he said, "What will you tell the press?" "The truth," she said, "that I was offered power and chose purpose." Outside, reporters swarmed the White House steps. Microphones everywhere. "Ms. Carter, are you joining the administration?" She stopped just long enough to answer. "No, I'm staying where the work happens, in the field, not the photo." The clip ran on every network that night. Later, in her D.C. apartment, the Sheikh called. "You turned down the President of the United States," he said. "I did. You're aware people would kill for that chance." "Maybe they would. But I didn't start this to become one of them." He was silent for a moment. "Then what's next?" Aaliyah looked out the window at the Capitol dome glowing under the night sky. "Next is expansion. International. If the system won't change here, we'll build one that forces it to." The Sheikh exhaled, half sigh, half admiration. "You'll need protection. Influence. Partners." "I'll need people," she said. "Real ones." He smiled faintly. "Then you already have what they don't." 5 years later, the plane descended over Beirut. The city lights stretched across the coast like a chain of lanterns. Aaliyah sat by the window, her reflection faint against the glass. She hadn't been here since she was a child, before her father died, before hotels and speeches in governments. Now, the car waiting for her carried a small flag, the Carter Global Initiative. The Sheikh was already there, older now, walking with a cane but still sharp. They met in a converted university hall overlooking the sea. Banners hung overhead. Opening ceremony, Carter Academy Middle East. He smiled when she approached. "It's done. The first academy outside America. You've gone full circle." Aaliyah looked around at the new classrooms, the multilingual signs, the rows of laptops lined up for students who hadn't even arrived yet. "We'll start with 100 trainees," she said. "Half refugees, half local hires. Hospitality isn't just work here, it's survival." He nodded. "And you?" "I'm staying for a while. I want to see it run." He chuckled. "I should have known. You never delegate what matters." That night, She walked alone through the old markets. The smell of coffee, cardamom, and rain filled the air. At a small stall, she saw a ring, plain gold, a single green stone, almost like the one she had once returned in another lifetime. The merchant noticed her pause. Beautiful, isn't it? It brings luck. Aaliyah smiled. I don't believe in luck. What do you believe in then? He asked. Work, she said simply, and paid for it anyway. A week later, the academy opened. Students arrived, women in headscarves, men in worn jackets, a few teenagers barely 16. Aaliyah stood on the small stage, no microphone, just her voice. When I was your age, she began, I thought opportunity was something rich people gave to others. I was wrong. Opportunity is built, not granted. It's built by people who refuse to stay where they're told to stand. She looked at the crowd. You'll learn to serve tea, check in guests, run kitchens, manage accounts. But more than that, you'll learn to stand tall. You'll learn to be seen. No applause, just quiet focus. The kind that mattered. 2 months later, she returned to the U.S. The plane touched down in New York. Her driver took her not to an office, but to the Regal Hotel, the place where everything had begun. The lobby was still marble, still polished, but different. A plaque by the entrance read, in honor of every worker who was told they were replaceable, then proved they weren't. She smiled. Inside, employees stopped to greet her. Managers, housekeepers, valets. So were graduates from her academies. She didn't give speeches. She just nodded, asked about their families, and moved on. Upstairs, she entered the same suite where, years ago, she had returned that ring. The curtains were open. The city hummed below. She set her bag down and looked around. A voice behind her said, Feels smaller now, doesn't it? She turned. It was Luis Mendoza, now Regional Operations Director. Everything does, she said. Once you outgrow it. He smiled. They're asking if you'll ever run for office. Never, she said. I build things. I don't campaign for them. He nodded and left her to the quiet. She walked to the window. Her reflection blended with the skyline. She thought of her father's grocery store, her mother's small apartment, the mop bucket, the first insult, the first defiance, the first victory. Every step, brick by brick, until here. The phone buzzed. A message from the Sheikh. Beirut opened with 124 students. Next cities, Nairobi, Manila, Bogota. You started a movement. Aaliyah typed back. Not a movement. A correction. She slipped the new ring on her finger and looked at the city one last time. The sky was pale, the light sharp. The same kind of morning she'd once cleaned through. She whispered, justice arrived. It just needed someone to hold the door. Then she turned off the lights and left the room. No longer a housekeeper, not even a director, but something larger. A builder of fairness in a world that had forgotten what it looked like.